As Prime Minister Narendra Modi completes 9 years in office, here's a look at the transformation India has witnessed in the 9 sectors, overcoming challenges like the pandemic, an expansionist China and hostile Pakistan. India's global profile has evolved drastically. The consistent policy interventions and the evolving strategies to meet new challenges has helped India become a global partner to the US, Europe, South America and Africa alike. Gulam, in your opinion, while researching on this particular topic, what factors did you come across which actually helped, if I may ask here, or were favorable to the current dispensation of Narendra Modi at the helm of the affairs to tide over this crisis which the whole world witnessed post-pandemic?
Yes, Pankaj, you saw, just after 1 year after Article 70 was abrogated, the whole world was hit by this COVID pandemic. We saw the major economies were facing huge crisis. But
Right.
then, India as emerging, as a major economy, as a global emerging global leader, it rose to the occasion. There were criticisms in the beginning, but eventually what happened, we were there to help 94 countries with vaccines. That is where it started. So we kind of resisted the impact. There was criticism how we internally handled the COVID-19 situation. But again, globally, if we see providing, vaccine doses, 700 lakh vaccine doses to 94 countries is a big thing. Then we had Russia-Ukraine war. There was a huge pressure from the West, and India did not buckle under pressure. We have to, Prime Minister Modi made his mind that he has to keep the energy interest in mind. The entire West wanted India to boycott Russia, but that didn't happen. We kept our oil interest intact. So overall, we are a, we all these things happen, like Germany is almost under recession, US is facing a debt crisis, but India is continuing to grow, and by the end of this decade, India will be the third largest economy. And despite all the pressures that post Ukraine war or post COVID are happening, there are also some political achievements. Once you are a majority party, you are a party with a majority, you win two consecutive elections with thumping majority.
Right.
So you have that mandate that you can take decisions with, broad decisions. You can take decisions boldly without so much of criticism. But there were some negatives, like in case of agriculture, as our guest was rightly saying. This government has been lucky to an extent. There have been favorable monsoons repeatedly, so there was no agriculture crisis as such. So I would say that this government, politically also, they took a decision like Article 370, what Balakot airstrikes, and what how we handle China. You saw the border infrastructure being built in the northeast. You saw how we dealt with after the Galwan clash. So these things obviously, give out a message that here is a government which is going to take bold decisions, which is going to send out message to the world that we are the fastest growing economy. We are not going to bow down under pressure. So we are, calling shots.
Right.
Look at China. China started it's as there were things that were happening earlier also. It was most of the things, rather not most of the things, like many things were work in progress. China has been trying to, being trying China has been is trying to assert itself along the border before 2014 also. But then we what we did with the border infrastructure, we are building our villages in China. China will get isolated along the, globally. With Pakistan, how we dealt with Pakistan. Pakistan is almost, on the verge of collapse. There are political issues happening. But again, we did Article 370, we did Palakot strike. So these are messages that India is sending to the world
Right.
under Prime Minister Modi, that we are here to stay, and we are an economy, we are a country, we will not compromise with our sovereignty.
Right. And obviously, Gautam, now talking about the favorable factors and the numbers that obviously are with the NDA as of now, taking big decisions like abrogation of Article 370, or for that matter, implementation of GST, which the Congress would always say Gabbar Singh tax. That's how they have named it. Taking such bold decisions, what, in your opinion, are the three, if I may ask you to list three of the decision-making enablers that the NDA government, the Modi government has on its side as of now, which actually helps them and bolsters their support to take such decisions? Gautam, you'll have to unmute yourself, sorry.
I think the major thing has been speed. You know, the implementation of things that they start up to finish. Here is the parliament built in 2 years flat. Can you imagine something like that
quick,
happening in a democracy as turbulent as India's, with many PILs filed in the Supreme Court saying, you know, this is wrong, let's not do it, why is it necessary, why spend the money, etc. So this has happened in area after area, tunnels that have been built in the mountains, in very high mountains, in very difficult conditions, in, again, fairly record time. Things don't start and languish for 10 and 15 years. So this is a hallmark of the Modi administration. Infrastructure implementation has been absolutely first class. Second, diplomacy. In diplomacy, the stature of India has been increased substantially. One is because of an extensive reaching out to many, many countries, many of which were, you know, not ever visited by anybody from India at the level of a foreign minister or the prime minister, you know, throughout our 75 years. And the second part, the adjunct to this, is that we're not just being diplomatic. We are now viewed as a country of consequence because we are on our way to being the third largest economy in the world, just behind, well, considerably behind perhaps America and China. But in 10 years' time, when our economy will also be post $10 trillion, it's anybody's guess how much higher than that. The gap won't look so intimidating. So this, if you like, diplomacy juxtaposed with economic success on a continual basis, year on year, is I'd say the second thing. And the third thing is, for the very first time, we talk of Atmanirbhar defense. Now, while we are making cell phones, rather assembling cell phones, trying to attract semiconductors and so on, it hasn't happened yet. But we are already making quite a few defense items. We have a squadron or two of our self-made fighter aircraft, the Tejas. We're going into the Mark II, and then we're going into the AMCA. We're making helicopters, we're making tanks, we're making light tanks, we're making all sorts of sub-assemblies. We are exporting defense gear, and in a decade to come, we will be a exporter to reckon with, and will meet a great deal. I mean, in missiles, we are already amongst the best in the world. If you talk of satellites, again, we have done wonderfully well with ISRO. So this kind of Atmanirbharta, which is not just manufacturing things for export, as in the Chinese model that helped them grow to the second largest economy.
Right.
Though they also have a large military establishment, a lot of it is not very good. We have made an actual, well, two of them, in fact, 2 nuclear submarines. We've made an aircraft carrier. This is already done. at
Right.
a level of $3.5 trillion worth of GDP. So imagine this at 10 and 12, and I think we will be a country amongst the top 5